Hello, everyone. Um, I need to write a presentation for a rule proposal for the next IDGOP summer meeting, which is in Pocatello next June. I wrote down a bunch of stuff, cleaned it up, or so I thought, ran through it again, and the time it takes was a lot longer than what I was thinking. It's definitely going to need to be a lot shorter. I don't want to pare this down until it's otherwise recorded, because a lot of this would get wasted. So here I am, recording a presentation on the local bylaw archive. Also, it's not 100% that I can even make it to Pocatello, and in that case, I still want to be speaking out about my rule proposal, so here we are. Let's see, I'm gonna transition over now. Let's see if it actually does it properly. Looks like it did. Okay, so this is about just simply changing the part about our state rules so that things are a little bit clearer with who does what. Striking out about the absence of rules of blah, yada, 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 striking out all this language right here, and inserting, before continuing on, limitations and scope. The entirety of this article is subordinate to Article 4 and Article 7, and this article shall never conflict with those articles. Now, those two articles that's mentioning in there, those have to do with county committees and legislative district committees. That's all that really is. Saying that this whole article about the Bylaw Archive is not supposed to supersede all of the other much more important stuff. Okay, so this is where I was supposed to transition. Sometime, and this is where I'll just start what I had written down, and I'll definitely be saying a lot shorter version of this in Pocatello if I get there. So, sometimes I reference the night of 1,000 stories, which was May 26, 2016. This was the 2016 reorganization meeting of the Ada County Republican Party. The reason I call it that is that there were many stories happening in parallel that night that largely had, revolved around things done or said in that meeting. Consequences are unending. Nothing happens in a vacuum. The very night right before that, though, was the Legislative District 17 reorg. That night has a few stories that started at that meeting as well. The one that's most relevant here is that this is the story of how the local bylaw archive came to be. This is quite literally what it started. It started at that day, a lot farther back than people realize. Say that phrase a lot, don't I? But the one that's relevant here is how the local bylaw archive came to be. So this is the story of the local bylaw archive, and we'll get into what needs to be fixed here in a moment, at least brush past it. I first need to apologize that about the lack of a lot of the extra details I usually tell in a story of this kind. This was the very first meeting I was ever present for as an actual precinct committeeman. This is all the way back in 2016. I was trying to pay attention, but my political involvement had literally just started. At that moment, I was green as green could be. A few minutes into this meeting, there was a disagreement about the rules. I've told this story, at least a much shorter version of it, in a couple different contexts, and those versions were a lot more tailored toward those contexts, as it were, but a few minutes into the meeting, there was a disagreement about the rules. It would turn out to the disagreement would turn out to be about proxies, funny enough. I had a rough idea of who my political friends were at the table, but I was not clued into what the issue was ahead of time. My friends favored one side. A very clear minority, including the chairman at the moment, were on the other side of the disagreement. There was some arguing for a minute or two, and I stayed out of it because I had no idea what the rules were or how that kind of thing should be handled. I would later find out that these rules in this case are referred to as bylaws, and Much later, I'd find out they effectively have the force of contract law. The man who was chairman at that moment cited some rules in a fictitious Article 11 of our bylaws to rule in favor of his side. How do I know it was fictitious? Well, about a year and a half later, after some drama that nobody should go through just to find out the rules, I was able to obtain a verifiable copy of the Legislative District 17 Republican Central Committee bylaws. Turns out there was no Article 11 at all in said bylaws at the time. Both sides ended up being wrong about proxies that day too. As I would come to find out. However, I can say with some certainty that the outcome of that meeting would have been identical anyway, because not long after that ruling, that man was voted out. And my friend, David DeHaas, was voted in. He's a good dude. Through my experiences of that day, and in getting the last verifiable copy of the District 17 bylaws, and all of the really unnecessary drama that entailed, as well as talking about the situation with other Republicans across the state, it eventually became necessary to start the local bylaw archive at the state level. The rules for it were initially passed at the 2020 winter meeting on the premise that rules and bylaws should absolutely be available for all Republicans. In the years since, there have been some growing pains, as it were, for the local bylaw archive. After having some very, very similar conversations with people across the state, and at the state level, it became clear that a few adjustments need to be made. District 17, again, leading the way and being the spear in this, has sent this rule change to the 2025 IDGOP summer meeting in Pocatello. Now, why are we all here with this video here? This won't be the full presentation, that's for sure. First, it is my hope that this is seen as moving towards a more level playing field in terms of the local bylaw archive and how such bylaws are made available. It should not be possible to hide or play games with current versions of local committee bylaw documents. Republicans should be able to know what the rules are. Now, second, no part of the bylaw archive or the rules about it should supersede the duties of all the local committee officers. Article 15 wasn't originally written that way, but some not so good interpretations of it made it sound like nobody had responsibilities to have their bylaws available, or in worse cases, they started making a lot of their own procedures that kind of cut into what a local chairman were supposed to be doing. So, some not so good interpretations made it sound like nobody had responsibility to have their bylaws available, and that got in the way of a lot of people on the ground knowing what the rules were. Having the same problems that we were having before the bylaw archive. So again, Republicans should be able to know what the rules are. Third, it is the hope and intent here that this change will make things less complicated and therefore more conducive to what we are all here to do. Advance the Republican philosophy. Can't do much of that when we are in a quagmire of parliamentary inquiries, points of order, dilatory interjections at conventions, and relentlessly pedantic junk that happens because some dude shot a pig in 1859. Bonus points if you get the reference. Yes, again, Republicans should be able to know what the rules are. This change here is the best good faith attempt to make sure Idaho Republicans are able to know what the rules are. Thank you. Now, this is the part where, I ask for questions, yield my time back, etc., etc. Instead, if you are viewing this video about, before 5 p.m., I think, thereabouts, 5 p.m. on June 20th in the year of our Lord 2025, and would like to ask questions or just talk to me about this, either leave a comment below or drop me a line. I'd like to talk to you. I'm going to stop here and possibly record another similar video, but yeah, I'll just be stopping here. Blessings.